Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. We have changed up the format a little bit. Thanks for adapting. I know that we are usually do the Menti after we start, but today we decided to do the Menti earlier. The overwhelming feedback we got from attendees was that we want to keep it tight. I know that a lot of you enjoy the Menti, you enjoy the workshops, but we also want to know that your time is valuable. So we want to keep it to 2 hours or as close to it as possible. So with that said, Aaron, do you want to say hi, and if you can get some thumbs up about the music, about the quiz music? My bad.
Is that still going? Yeah, okay. Hello, everyone. Yeah, that'd be really great, actually. I am good to go, Rags. Yeah. All right. I suppose I should get started then. We all ready to go, Rags? All right. Well, just again wanted to do a shout out to our entire team, because there's definitely more people behind the production of these workshops than just Rags and I. We are merely the tip of the iceberg. There's so many folks who work hard on trying to get this right and get this to you. So yeah, just a quick shout out to everybody, and I'm sure you'll see some of them in the chat as well, helping you out. So yeah. But otherwise, Rags, why don't you introduce
Perfect.
yourself?
Can people hear me now? I think I had something off. I usually don't do that, but I think I might have turned it off by mistake. Can you hear me now? Can you quick thumbs
Yeah,
up?
quick thumbs up if
Yes, great.
oh,
Okay.
you're better.
So my name is Raghavan Srinivas, but for whatever reason, people around the world have a tough time saying my name, so I just go by Rags. Rags, not the richest, easiest way to remember me. I am mostly on the Java side, and essentially, I my undergrad was in mechanical engineering, and I think I like the workshops because that is the closest I can come to see things move, right? I really love to teach. I love to communicate, and one of the passionate things I hold very dearly, and something that I don't think we have gotten there, despite a lot of advances in distributed systems, is how easy is it to kind of do the inner loop. In fact, while we are working on the workshop itself, we saw this happening where we had to do multiple iterations of kind of figuring out how to set up the endpoints, how to call the APIs and so on. And we do this over and over again. So we want to simplify this, make it easier, and make ourselves more productive. With that said, Aaron, up to you.
All right. Well, as Reg said, my name is Aaron Pletz. I have worked in the Cassandra world for the better part of a decade now. In fact, I think last month was 10 years that I've been 10 years that I've been working with Apache Cassandra. So I know, isn't that a crazy long time? It really doesn't seem like it's been around that long, but yeah, so yeah, I did a lot of engineering on the back end application as well as the database side for a lot of Fortune 50 companies like WW Grainger and Target. I currently lead the Stack Overflow tag and for Cassandra in Rep. So I've done a lot of work out there. If you've asked questions out there, chances are I've probably helped you. And I've also worked as a bit as an author. I wrote the most recent edition of Mastering Apache Cassandra, and I wrote a few chapters in the 7 NoSQL databases in a week book. So yeah, that's me. All right. So real quick, hey Regs, why don't we go through some housekeeping things, just kind of about how the workshop's going.
We actually stream on YouTube. We also stream on Twitch because occasionally YouTube has hiccuped on us. But the only thing we monitor the chat on is on YouTube. We don't monitor the chat on Twitch. But ideally, what we would like you to do is, if there are any in-depth questions, we'd like you to go to Discord. But, it's perfectly fine to chat on YouTube. As you can see there is a lot of chatter going on. One suggestion that we try to make is, if at all possible, if you can limit the chat when we are actually going through the workshop, if you can pay a little bit of attention, then, the instructions are pretty self-explanatory. In fact, Aaron just tried them out this morning just to make sure that everything is working fine. So you can try them out later, but, if you can limit the chat for that time, that'll be great. As always, we have Menti, where, thanks for joining already. If you don't know the code, you can just put a #Menti or !Menti in the chat, and it should come back with the right code, hopefully. But we will have a few more Menti questions, and then we'll dive right into into the meat of today's content, right? The idea behind Menti is so that, if people are struggling in a little bit late, it's okay. We still want to recognize those who have come here at the right time. So we want to keep it tight. And hopefully we'll have just a couple of questions on Menti and breeze through that as quickly as possible. All right.
All right.
So should we go ahead and do the Menti, or are there a few more slides? As always,
you know what? Menti?
Yeah, as always,
we'll
Astra, Gitpod, there is Katacoda, and there is GitHub. There are complete workshops and labs. If you go to Astra, you will have a link later. GitHub, github.com/DataStax devs, and we will have links of this later as well. You will get complete workshops and labs, including this one, which will be available pretty soon as well, including the video recording of this. So this video recording can be watched later on the same link. All right, next slide. Okay, let's finish up the Menti then, and then we can come back to the architecture and the meat of the content that we're waiting for, right? So let me go back to the Menti. Okay, and I'm going to get rid of you and myself, or make ourselves smaller. All right, and make sure I have some little bit of quiz music. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, I got it.
I see the architecture slide.
All right, and and I'm going to put some music, and we'll go with Menti. You guys ready? Keep it short and sweet. All right. Again, if you want, 6916-6752. Okay, just a few questions. What is your primary programming language? We want to make sure that we are talking to the right audience. Java, Python, 1.1. Java winning. All right. TypeScript, a few others. C#, a few. That's nice. TypeScript. Python, front-end JS, really not many back-end. Quite a few Java, that's very cool.
Yeah.
So you are in the right place then.
You know, I know we have that other category, but I wonder what other is. So anyone who's clicking other, go ahead and
Yeah,
throw
in the
what you're
chat. It
working
might be
on in
useful
the
for
chat.
us.
That'd
Yeah,
that'd
absolutely. Yeah, good
yeah.
call out there. Quite a few Python as well. All right. So I think we have an idea. We were hoping that, Java, Python, and, JavaScript, Node.js, probably going to be the same. And that's kind of what we are seeing here, which with a bias to Java, which is fine because, most of the content today is going to be around Java. All right.
I see Adam speak in the chat. It's like Rust for the
Rust.
win. So
Cool.
he must be one of the others.
All right. Moving on. What is your role as a developer? All right. I'm not a developer. We got quite a few of them, right? But no worries. If you're not a developer, we will still have instructions that you can follow along. We have had a lot of not a developer, so you are in good company.
Yeah. Well, the one person in operator DBA that's me. So
yeah, exactly. I think this is a great mix, right? I think this is a
Right.
beautiful mix. It has pretty much everybody, front-end developer, back-end developer, a few cloud-native developers, a few operator DBAs, like you said. So that's really cool. All right.
Yeah. That's a
Finally,
good mix.
what's your experience with NoSQL databases? And this could include, really any NoSQL databases. Could be Astra, could be Cassandra, could be really anything. Okay. I'm a master two of them. We always get those, right? Yeah, we'd like to, hopefully, have something that in there that might really, advance your skills as well.
Yeah, and a lot of people too.
Exactly.
That's good.
And really, the goal is to level up your skills. We have some people with experience, never used it. No worries. I think anything else that we need to talk about, Aaron? I think this is kind of what we expected, right? Yeah.
I think so. I think so. Yeah.
You're doing well on time. So, have you attended our last question? Did you attend our previous ecom workshops? This will help us in kind of,
Right.
So,
Sure. For sure. And
does
this
not
is
at
not
all require.
required. If this is the
good point.
Yep.
Good point.
First one of the e-commerce series, that's okay. Yeah. Oh, hey, somebody back from December.
Yeah,
All
and two
right.
people attended
Love it.
both. Wow.
Both.
Nice. Nice.
There we go.
Yeah.
Lots of new people, though. Again, that's good.
We kind of expected this, right? So, yeah. This is great to know. Okay.
Yep.
Moving on. I think we're done with the questions. And we can get into the content, right? All right. As you know, DataStax.
that sounds good.
This might seem like a marketing thing, but anyway, certification is great because, many of us say, it helps boost your career. It helps boost your salary too. Okay. All right. With that said, let's move to the content. And give me a second before I put you on screen. All right.
Yep.
And you're good to go.
Okay. Well, back to our agenda here. So let's start by digging into a little bit about the architecture and some of the components in our stack that we're going to use today. So this is part 3 of common e-tail use cases. And we're gonna the whole idea here is to show how to build like real scalable solutions backed by DataStax, Astra DB, and Spring Boot. So if you've used a lot of Java, honestly, I've been a Java developer for a while. Before I was a DBA actually, so quite a while. But this project of building out an e-commerce app, this was my the first time that I used Spring Boot, and I was just amazed at how quickly it really helps you in terms of like wiring up things and eliminating a lot of like boilerplate code that you'd have to throw in there. So yeah, I really thought it was pretty cool, to be honest. All right, so I haven't talked about this yet in any of the prior two sessions, and Rags and I were discussing this and realized, it's a good idea. We'd better just make sure that anyone building an e-commerce website, make sure you're using HTTPS. You really do want that end-to-end encryption. So I'm just going to throw that out there. Make sure that we set it. Make sure that you're getting a certificate from a valid certificate authority. And if you're going to do it, I actually have an article on how to implement it with Spring Boot later at the end of the session. But I just have a little bit of the properties that come back that you'll need to set here. And I just want to throw out the warning too. I know folks, when they're doing local development, they want to use a self-signed cert. I can't caution against that enough, because I've seen self-signed certs make their way into production. And I'm not going to name the companies, but I'll just say you've heard of them. All right. So just that's the danger with self-signed certs. They're quick, they're convenient, but let's make sure they don't make their way beyond your local machine.
So, Aaron, I think, yeah. So do
ahead.
we want to mention the hypocritical aspect of this? Because for the workshop today, we're going to do HTTP, having said all that, right? But again, we're doing it just to make it easy for you.
Right. Yep. We just go with regular, HTTP, just because we don't want an extra layer of complexity along with this as well. But just
Exactly.
for real life application, make sure you're using an SSL cert there. All right. So a little bit about the architecture stack itself. Essentially, what we've got here is we have DataStax Astra DB as our backend database. We have Spring Boot on top of that, which helps out with running our RESTful service layer, as well as implementing some of the or extending out some of the Spring Data Cassandra classes as well to make wiring up the repositories and things a little quicker as well. And of course, a big shout out to Chris Wilhite from our team for building out the Node.js React app on top of this as well. And he did a lot of that using the Tailwind CSS. So if you found Tailwind CSS, it's essentially just like a library of like web components that allows you to. Oh, hey Rags, I'm seeing your desktop.
That's.
But anyway, I can say that the Tailwind CSS, again, it provides a bunch of ready-made, visual components that allows you to quickly build out a site. And again, yeah, Chris, if you're out there, thanks a lot for your help. Rags and I could not have done this without you.
I think your screen is showing. Maybe it's you. If you don't mind. I think you need to go in presentation mode. Aaron. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, maybe that's
Did I get
what
knocked out of presentation
No,
mode?
it's-
Is that what happened? Oh, I bet it was.
Yeah.
That's really strange. All right, let me do. Where were we? Here we go. That's where we
Yeah, so I was going to mention one thing, which
right.
is, if we'll get to Gitpod
yeah,
in
let
a
me go
moment,
back.
and what Gitpod does is it clones the repository. So don't be too surprised if there are some pushes that Chris is going to make, as we are working. So you may want to do a Git pull, to make sure that you have the latest. Okay, and we'll talk about all that in a second. But a lot of work happening behind
That's a
the
good
scenes.
point, right? I actually almost made a push like, I don't know, a half hour ago, but I'm like, with the the workshop coming up in a few minutes, I may not want to do that, but yeah, anyway. So that's a good point to call out. Work in progress. So, we'll get a lot of questions too. And I see this in not just this workshop, but some of the other workshops that we run as well is why Astra DB? How can other databases handle this? Why not MariaDB? Why not, some other database? Well, we'll try and touch on that
Let's
a little bit.
Get that out
here.
of the way first, right? Yeah.
But basically, your database selection really goes back to Brewer's cap theorem. And Brewer's cap theorem, for those of you who haven't heard of it, came about of a paper that Dr. Eric Brewer and Dr. Armando Fox wrote back in 1999 called Harvest Yield and Scalable Tolerance Systems. And basically it talked about like how all distributed systems try to achieve consistency, availability, and network partition tolerance. But the reality is, they can really only pick two. So what you have to do when you're designing a distributed system is you have to kind of think ahead of time about what's more important to you, and really kind of make a trade-off with, well, maybe we don't need consistency as much, or maybe we can live without high availability. That's really what it
to
comes down
stress
to.
the fact that when there are no failures, which is kind of a rarity in distributed systems, then you can have all three. But when there is a failure, you have to pick, or you have to sacrifice one of those, or you have to pick two of the three, right? Yeah.
And that's a good point too, Regs. One of the other interesting papers that came out that's kind of foundational in the design of distributed systems is Amazon's Dynamo paper. I have a link to that later on, actually, but that's the one where they talk about Amazon scale, and they talk about just how many thousands of servers they have. It's probably they probably have 1 million servers today, to be honest. But it's like when you have that many, it's like nothing is ever working 100% all the time. So that's where you're going to have some nuance there. But when you start looking at CAP and you start placing it out on like a diagram of like 3 points, you really start to come up with different designations of distributed systems. So if you have a system that's both consistent and partition tolerant, that's a CP system. If you have a system that's both consistent and available, well, that's a CA system. So it comes to these little like designations. And then if we move on from there and start looking at some common databases, what you'll see is your MariaDBs, your Postgres's, your Oracles, your MySQLs. The relational databases are going to be your CA database. Where traditionally speaking, they're both consistent and available, but they can do that because traditionally going back, they have obviously they have the benefit of 40 years of computer science behind them, but additionally they're usually only contained in a single system. So network partition tolerance isn't something that really comes into the picture. Now, when you start looking at systems that want to be distributed yet consistent, now we're talking about like your document databases, like your CouchDB, your MongoDB, where they'll have things set up where they'll make a decision ahead of time, like we want to be distributed, but we also want our data to be consistent. And well, if folks have to wait for it to be highly available, that's okay. So that's really what goes into those systems. Now, when you start looking at AP systems like Apache Cassandra, DataStax Astra DB, and some other databases like React, falls in there too, where it's like we decide, hey, we want to be distributed, we want to support network partition tolerance, or failure, and we're willing to sacrifice a little bit of data consistency to achieve that. And the reality is when you start getting to like high throughput systems, you're talking about always wanting to be able to give a response. That's what high availability is about. And really, when you look at sacrificing consistency for that, you're really talking about a difference of like double-digit milliseconds. Usually, that's what we're talking about. So it's not that great of a concession, if I might follow with that.
So, Aaron, I think Neeraj Verma has a good question, which is SQL doesn't follow the CAP theorem, right? And really, I think the lines are blurring quite a bit here, and it's hard to say, SQL doesn't. I mean, everything has to follow the CAP theorem, no matter what. It has
everything because
right.
physics, right?
But the point is that there are some NoSQL, and sometimes it's referred to as new SQL databases, because actually these databases, what they do is they kind of provide the SQL properties and also ACID properties. So there are ways of getting around that, but again, that's a little bit nuanced, and maybe Aaron will touch on that. But I don't know, Aaron, if you want to add anything to Neeraj's. My answer to Neeraj.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You I would just say that the new sequels, what is it, like Fauna and Yugabyte and Cockroach DB, Google Spanner,
Yeah.
of course, is a good one. Um, yeah, they take a different approach to solve this problem. Where they'll put, you know, consistency and availability as being really important, but they'll also do extra things on the network side to try and make it partition tolerant as well. Google Spanner actually does an amazing job of this. But again, you have to remember that Google Spanner only runs on Google, and they can do what they do because they own the network. So there's extra things that they can put in there to kind of make that work. Um,
I think one of the
yeah,
things that I
yeah,
learned,
it's
as a developer early on was this. I don't know if you've heard of the seven fallacies of distributed system. You will assume that the network is always stable, and that's a myth. Even if you're
it is.
Google, we've seen things break down on network. So on the cloud. So the idea is that it may happen. I don't know, once in a blue moon, but still you gotta be able to kind of address that.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, so we talked about that a little bit. I suppose we won't spend as much time on these slides just based on the last one as we've done in past sessions. But ultimately with a relational database, I mean, even I know that Postgres has in a way now that it's like distributed, but scaling is still kind of limited. Data, like I was kind of alluding to there, data distribution is more of an add-on rather than a core component. And again, when you're out in the cloud, this makes like geographic distribution and syncing across those geographic regions. That can be problematic when you're talking about like a vast amount of distance there. So again, that's where Astra and Cassandra are kind of going to be the better choice there. Hey, document stores are good. The thing that I've noticed, with again, just kind of my experience is that um, it, you know, scaling becomes a little bit harder. When you're focusing on consistency first, that does tend to limit throughput a bit. Just because when you look at like how a lot of CP systems are built, they'll have like a primary node and then maybe some secondaries. And I know Mongo gets around that a little by allowing like reads off of the secondaries. That's a setting that you can take. But again, what happens is that writes become like funneled through like a single or a subset of the nodes, which can kind of slow things down. Especially if you start hitting it hard with reads. I found that reads will become CPU bound. Um, and a lot of the document stores will say, "Oh yeah, we're schemaless." Well, anyone who's used them for long enough can tell you that yeah, schema actually is kind of important. And even though they're schemaless, you really do want to think about that ahead of time. And then I talk about heterogeneous node types can complicate DevOps. You look at a lot of these and they distribute because they have special kinds of nodes, like config servers and routing servers and primary servers and secondaries, and it just makes managing it kind of problematic. That's all. So hey, now to Astra DB. Well, the great thing about Astra is it's a database as a service, so there's no operational overhead. Has geographic awareness, so you can go ahead and set up your key spaces to be replicated, like in U.S. East, U.S. West, Central Europe. Wait, is there Central Europe or is it just like East and West Europe? I forget exactly, but Asia Pacific. That's another one where you can have your data replicated to. Astra is also not bound to a single cloud vendor, so we deploy and replicate to any geographic region on Azure or GCP or AWS. And we also offer no-touch scalability, which is really important too. I can tell you from operating in the Cassandra world for as long as I did, that when you need to scale up and you haven't, it's already too late. So it's a good idea to you have to kind of plan that and say, hey, our workloads are going to increase. by such and such on this date, so we want to expand our cluster out by a third. It's yeah, there's that kind of planning that goes into it. But with Astra DB, it kind of takes care of all of that. All right, Regs, I think we're ready to jump to creating an Astra DB
I think
instance.
this must be a record, right, for getting so early. But I think all the power to the attendees for giving the feedback, and I think we're doing good with respect to that. So let me go ahead and show you what I do in terms of steps. So you should be able to see my monitor, and I'll bring up.
Yep, I see.
I'll bring up the. Typically, what I do is I start with a GitHub link, and if you just do a pound GitHub, you should be able to get the link, and I'll try to put that, or maybe Aaron, you can do that. Once you get the GitHub link, all that I do is basically walk through this. Just go top to bottom, right? So there is a little bit of introduction. Let's not worry too much about that. We'll just jump right into creating the database instance. So in terms of steps, you have a register, you have a create a free plan. We like to say this. The free plan is actually pretty powerful. You don't have to put in a credit card. You just have to put in an email, and actually you can run some fairly substantial production loads, with this. Database name is demos and key space name is e-commerce. If you have already attended the workshop before, I know there were 2 people who attended both the workshops, and there were some who attended one of those, right? So you probably already have a database name, and you probably already have a key space name. Okay, but it doesn't. You can just go through the steps again, just to make sure it's a good reminder anyway, right? So then what we're going to do is we're going to create the database, and you'll see your database is pending in the dashboard, okay? And that's fine. And, eventually it'll get to an active state, as you can see here. And then you're good to go, okay? So if you have already created a database, and for some reason it's in standby state, and it does, because what we do is we actually, let me put this in full screen mode so that you can see it better. All right. So hopefully that's a little bit better. And here what you'll see is it's in standby mode, and you hit on the connect, and you'll see something like this: message, resuming your database, please try again shortly. And within a couple of minutes, it should be up and running. Okay. So let me walk through those steps right now. Okay, I'm not gonna go through the login and all that, but essentially, again, just follow the steps, right? So you have a register here. This is gonna take you to the link. I'm gonna open the link in a new window, just for the heck of it, right? And basically you can put in your first name, your last name, your email, and your password, and you can create an account. Okay, let's assume I've done that, right? And then once I've done this, right, follow this guide to set up the pay-as-you-go database. And then what we'll do is we'll create a database, okay? So for creating the database, we're going to use the database name as demo and key space name as e-commerce, okay? So I'm just going to, pretty straightforward, create a database. Okay, demos, e-commerce. Okay, and then I think Google Cloud is probably the easiest, and typically what we recommend is something a region close to you. So I pick US East 1. I could have picked US East 4. It doesn't. Some of those regions may not be available. If you want that particular region, you can start the chat and get it going, or you can basically put in a credit card. Money talks, right? So all of those regions will be unlocked for you if you put in the credit card, okay? But right now, I probably only have this available, right? And you can see here, once I had this, I picked this region, okay, demos, e-commerce, okay, and I can just hit the create database, and it'll be up and running, okay? So why don't we? Did I cover everything that I wanted to cover here? Why don't we pause for?
Yeah, I just jump ahead. Yeah, I think that's okay, Regs, because it'll take a couple of minutes for that
Exactly.
for those
So why
databases
don't
to
we
spin up.
pause for a little
So
bit
yeah.
and get a few thumbs up of those? Don't worry if it's in pending state. It'll get to active state in a couple of minutes.
Yep.
But let's see a couple of thumbs up because this is typically what we do in our workshops. We wait a little bit, just to make sure that you're not completely blocked, right? And then we proceed. But we won't wait for too long because the instructions are always there. So as soon as we see a few thumbs up, I think we are good to go, right? So basically, what you're going to do at this point is create a database, register, create a database, database name, key space, e-commerce, and so on. And one of the other things that I wanted to show you was, if it's in a pending state, okay, and I'm again bringing up the dashboard here, you can see there is another demos database which is in standby mode. Okay, so all that you need to do is hit connect, right? And then if you go to SQL console, this is probably the easiest. There are a number of other ways of doing this. It'll give you this message: resuming your database. Please try again shortly, and then it should be up and running in a little bit. Okay, so let's see a few thumbs up. We got one from Ankit. Any more thumbs up? And then we'll start the presentation.
Yep. Yep. Hey, I also see a question out there from Niraj about can you
Oh
cover
yes,
key space
good
a little
point.
bit?
Yeah, I knew I
And
forgot something. Key space is really kind of a logical grouping, if you will. Like for example, if you look at this demos, this has a number of. This one has only e-commerce, right? But if you look at workshops, it has a number of workshops that we recently did. I had a native Java, which is native Java, to-dos, and then Drapatisca. Stefano is listening to me. It's an Italian for spider, which is a cool spider game, and so on. So essentially, what it is, it's a logical grouping of these different databases, and that's really what a key space is. And if you dig down into a key space, let's say we look into to-dos, right? So if you take a look at this, and I can show that in a second. So use to-dos, yeah,
thumbs up is
and
good. Yeah.
describe tables. This will have everything, all the tables associated. If only I can spell. Right, describe tables, and it'll have just to-do items, right? Now, if I were to go to demos, right, which is what we are working on today, and do the same thing, right? You can see this is going to be a little bit different, right? Use demos. Oh no, what is it? Oh, use e-commerce, and again describe tables, right? And you'll see it's basically like a logical grouping of the different tables and whatever is needed. You can see today you will go through this category, the price, the product, the user by email, and all of this today. Okay, a lot of thumbs up. So let's not wait for anything more. And I will put you on. Just give me a second. All right, you're good to go.
All right. Well, getting back to our agenda here, let's have a look at the specific use cases that that we're going to be talking about today. So of course, and I mention this in every session that we do, but there's a lot of components that go into building out an e-commerce website. There's a lot of subsystems. So really, these first few sessions we're kind of concentrating on what we're calling like the core subsystems, like things you absolutely need in a in an e-commerce site. So really, what we've been talking about, the first session was around like building out services and models for the product component. Last session we talked a lot about the shopping cart and some of the architectural nuances of that as well, and again how to like model and architect that out. And today we're going to be talking about the user profile. So we have Yeah, there was a whole lot of work that went into today's. We did a brainstorming session about a month ago on, oh, hey, what do we all want to have for user profile? And we had all this great stuff. But we had to trim that down substantially. Just, really it's only Rags, myself, and Chris, and we had to come to the realization that we can't build Amazon.com in 3 weeks. I mean,
I think we could.
That's
Let's
just what
take
it
it up
comes
as a
down
challenge,
to. So.
especially with all the attendees. So I think we can do that.
Oh, right. Okay, so moving on. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rich,
Yeah. So
one?
essentially, what we are doing in this, I mean, really, the whole workshop is the different installments. Is essentially we have the Cassandra drivers, and we're using Spring Data Cassandra to essentially kind of provide the ORM, or the object relational mapping, even though this is not a relational database, and to be able to kind of view that as an object, right? And of course, we have a front end, with Tailwind CSS that we are not going to talk about here. But this is kind of the Spring Boot Java aspect of this that many of you might be familiar with, right? And what we're going to do is kind of dig into some of this code, and all of this code is available for you to try it out. As Aaron was mentioning,
That's right.
when we started talking about brainstorming, what modules can we start adding? Because again, Rome was not built in a day. Our e-commerce application was not built in a day either. So what we did was, if you go to the next slide, what we did was we added Spring Security, and what Spring Security does, and I myself learned this, is it provides you with OAuth2 login. OAuth2 login might seem really, really complicated and hairy, because what it does is it redirects you to a URI to be able to log in, and then passes a token on to you, and that's the token that you hold on until it expires and so on. You don't have to worry about any of that as a developer. That's the cool thing about Spring, right? Basically, what it does is, whether you're doing GitHub, whether you're doing Google, whether you're doing Facebook, or whether you're doing any of the social logins, you can incorporate all of them into Spring Security, and we will see that today in action, where you will incorporate the Google login. Okay, so we decided to just keep it simple again, but we have tried it out with GitHub as well, and you can try that out. So that's kind of how Spring Security fits in, and you will get to experience it yourself. It's a lot of steps. I mean, still a lot of steps despite all that, but it we have the instructions, and you can follow along. And again, let us know if you get stuck at any point. Okay. All right. Next slide.
Right. So this is what we're going to cover today, is just the user profile. So really it's just about, hey, any data that pertains to a specific user, and the ways that you might need to access that data. So really quick, one slide on Cassandra data modeling. The whole idea with Cassandra data modeling is that you're data modeling for performance, and you're going to build a table to suit a specific query. And a lot of times in the Cassandra world, that means you build, if you have, 3 queries that you need to serve, you might have 3 tables built to serve those queries, and that's okay. And the idea is that, hey, you get fast reads out of that. You have a simple query model. But some of the cons, some of the drawbacks are that, well, you have a little bit of data duplication. I remember really, drive space is cheap these days, so data duplication that's okay. Operational cost is really the driving factor these days. But sometimes enforcing that manual data integrity can be a little complicated. And I actually do have a slide on how to do that with Spring Data a little further down. But just an example for modeling, in the relational world, you'd have, to serve one query, you'd have like 2 tables, you'd have employees, you'd have your departments, and these are, in third normal form where you're working down all your, all your dependencies and all your redundant data, and you'd select from employees and you'd do a join on departments. Well, in Cassandra and Astra DB, we don't have joins available. So we use a technique we call denormalizing or denormalization that turns that essentially into this. So where we have that query where we'd normally do, from employees join on departments, well, now we just have the table that has all the data, which we would be querying anyway. We serve it in one shot. So that's kind of the idea behind how you model for specifically for like AP type of databases.
I think really the cost of disk and storage and all that cannot really be overemphasized, or at least the lower costs. And I mean,
Oh, right.
I might be,
Yeah.
you and I might be giving out our ages, but maybe not you. At least me. I was so excited when I moved from a 20 megabyte, remember, mega, right? We are not even talking anything else. A 20 megabyte XT to a 40 megabyte AT. Okay, I was beyond thrilled. So disk was very expensive, even if you think about it about 10 years ago. So it's okay to denormalize. You don't need that strict normalization, which was all invented, at that time. But that's not the only factor. Obviously there are other factors to consider as well. Just to add to that.
And that's a interesting point to bring up, Regs, just to get some perspective out there. My first computer was a Tandy 1000 EX.
Yeah.
It did not have
That
a
was a
hard
luxury.
drive.
Yeah.
My second computer did have a 20 megabyte hard drive, so I was pretty stoked when I got that. So yeah, I know what you mean. All right, so of course, I have this in every presentation we've done so far. Tips for large scale Cassandra modeling for obviously Apache Cassandra and DataStax Astra DB as well. Mainly what you want to think about is, and Regs and I kind of alluded to this as we were going along here, but data that's queried together should be stored together. That's a good tip to have. When you're thinking about which columns you want to make your make parts of your primary key, think about columns that have a high cardinality or a high range of values. Obviously, the low side of that is to use a Boolean where you've got true and false. That's extremely low cardinality. But like a high range of values is definitely something you want in your in the columns that you select to be your keys. No full table scans. Try to avoid things that scan an entire table. Specifically, I can think of select star from without a where clause is something you really want to try to avoid. And then really just the last tip I have is try to keep things small, small partitions, small column values, a small number of like rows in your result sets. The smaller you can keep things, the happier you're going to be when you get to like a really large data processing scale. All right. So, I threw together a quick conceptual data model, but it's very simple what we're doing here, and it's sort of similar to the one we used last time, where your user has some personal data, of like email. There's an ID. It might be a locale for their browser. It might be their addresses as well, and that personal data, that user also has shopping carts, so they're going to be linked together by that user ID and that cart ID, kind of going over a little bit of what we talked about last time. And when you break that down, really for the purposes of what we're doing with user data is we're trying to query user data by ID, and we're also trying to query it by email address. And you'll understand, obviously, these queries make sense, but it really drives the table design. So when we look at the logical data model is, we really have, I spelled password timestamp wrong. We really have a like a single repository of user data, and we have things that we want to be able to pull it back by. But when it comes down to like a physical data model, this is what we're looking at. We're looking at a user table that has a primary key of user ID. And then we also have a user by email table that just returns the ID. Now, that might seem counterintuitive to how you'd want to design some of these systems, and I will explain that in a little bit. But really, this design is driven by one key factor. And now you could go ahead and just have user email be your primary key, but that's not a good idea, because what do we know about user emails? I mean, they do change. Your user will come in sometimes, say, oh yeah, I'm with a new provider now, or oh, I signed up for this account using my work email and now I've changed jobs. There will be situations where user emails will change. So you really need to be careful about the amount of data that you actually like associate with that, and how difficult that could make changing that email address.
So do we want to spend a little bit of time on partition key versus primary key? Because partition key is not just the primary key, as SQL people from SQL world kind of understand that, right? Yeah.
That's a good point, Riggs. Yeah, where you look at down here in the I kind of have a little bit of a definition of, hey, this is the partition key, the PK. This is the clustering key, the CK. We actually don't have any clustering keys for this week. I think we did last week. Yeah. But for this one, we don't. But the idea is that together, the partition keys and the clustering keys make up the primary key. That's really what drives the primary key definition. Now, your partition keys in and of themselves determine, those are what gets hashed, and that hash is what is used to figure out which node the data is on, which physical server it is. So really, that partition key helps Cassandra and Astra figure out,
especially in a distributed system, data. I think the partition key plays a big role, right? Yeah.
Big time. Yeah. You know what? And I have a slide that kind of shows why that's important in a little bit here. And the clustering key is inside of a partition. How do you want your data to be clustered or ordered? So the clustering key is what actually designates, like, the column that your rows are going to be sorted by. Column or columns. So you can have multiple. And of course, you can have different sort directions too, either ascending or descending as well. So, all right. So user profile, again, it's pretty simple. We have, I think this is an exhaustive list of the properties that are on that table. There might be a couple other ones that you find in there now that I say that out loud. But of course, we have our user ID. That's our primary key. We have our email. Google brings back like a picture URL, so I thought I'd include that if anybody wanted to make use of it. I don't think our app does. We have first name and last name. Locale, if you wanted to set your browser locale based on what like Google or GitHub has. Addresses is really worth talking about a little bit. It's a list, or so, a collection. That's a frozen collection of a UDT, or a user-defined type. So we kind of build out address as its own special type, of like, street and city and, postal, zip code, and country, a few other things. Basically everything you'd need to mail something, over to
what
somebody.
What does frozen mean? Does it mean that I cannot move? I'm just asking.
Oh, no, because you can have multiple addresses. That's the whole idea behind the collection. And you'll see this more in like a B2B, like a business to business type of a transaction, where a business will have like a headquarters address and a mailing address and a shipping and a billing address, and they could all be different. Gotcha. So that's important to understand too for e-commerce. And the frozen keyword might add some extra complexity, but really all that does is that a frozen collection in Cassandra and Astra means that it's going to be stored as a blob or like a binary large object essentially, and that's just for terms of updating. Now, when you have a collection of a user-defined type, it has to be frozen. That's kind of a restriction. So
Gotcha.
that's why that keyword is in there. Oh yeah, and of course, password hashing. Um, this should go without saying, kind of like building an e-commerce site with an SSL certificate, but make sure your password is never stored in plain text. Um, and one of the common industry practices is to make sure that you're using a hash, because a hash is one way. And to accomplish this, there's actually the bcrypt password encoder that comes with, I think it's with Spring Web Security is the library that's in. But that allows you to do a real quick hash of the password as it's coming in from the site. And the idea is that you don't store the password itself, you hash it and store the hash. That way, if you're not using like an OAuth or a single sign-in login like Google, Facebook, GitHub, whatever, you're using the traditional username and password. What you would do is take the password from the site, hash it, and then compare the two hashes. That's really what it's doing behind the scenes. Although you can see in the comparison example that I have here, it's doing a pencoder.matches of the raw password, which is the text-based password, and then the hash password that we have stored. And really what it does behind the scenes is it hashes that raw password first, and then it can compare the hashes and kind of move on from there. But again, just making sure that we're coming out and saying this: don't store passwords in plain text.
Jay Lee is saying that it's great info.
Right.
I think you can geek out on just security alone for a long time, right? But again, we are
Right.
trying to do an intro here, so a lot of topics we're going to cover that. But again, feel free to jump on Discord if you're particularly concerned about one aspect of it.
Yeah, yeah, and I suppose it's important to call out as well that hashing and encryption are not the same thing. And I think the difference is that a hash is one way, but encryption is two way. So you actually can decrypt an encrypted password. But storing passwords as a hash, as a one-way hash, is definitely an industry practice. So yeah, and you can go ahead and Google that difference too. And there's a lot of great articles explaining why one is better for certain situations as well.
Salt. I think we should just move on. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I should have mentioned the salt because the hash requires a salt, but yeah, the bcrypt encoder kind of does that itself under the covers. So yeah. All right. So I talked a little bit about the user-defined type of address, which again allows for multiple types. And again, really all this is just it's your mail to name, the type if you want, so we can save that in there too, help distinguish it from the others. Your street address, sometimes there's a street too if you have an apartment number or a suite or things, or a PO box, things like that. City, state, and province. I know not everybody calls states, and sometimes they're called different things. Postal code in the U.S. we call that a zip code, but every country has a postal code, I'm pretty sure, and then of course country to kind of help that out as well. And if there are others that are unique for where you live, and you want to make sure they get captured, this is where you'd add them in if you wanted to alter that a little bit.
So Santosh is asking, what is Gitpod URL? Can you hold off, Santosh? We'll get to it in like a couple of steps. So just hold off for a second.
Yep. All right. So user by email. Oh, I've been waiting to talk about this slide. And the next one. User by email is yeah, you know what? I'm going to edit this live because I totally...
We are building the plane as we go. Cut and paste.
Yeah, building it as we go. There we go. All right. So user by email. And essentially what that is that's a way for you to get the user ID just based on the email address. Because we typically, again, in that user table, we're not storing by email because, again, emails change, and primary keys in Cassandra and Astra cannot change. That's a important distinction there. So you might be wondering why this strategy for data modeling here of using a manual index is needed. So let me talk a little bit about a secondary index, because Cassandra and Astra actually do have a secondary index capability where you can do create index on like email on table user, and it'll look up by that. But again, what happens is it comes down to the cardinality of values that are in there that make those indexes efficient or not. And really what happens, and I have another slide that demonstrates this as well, but on a secondary index, the node or Cassandra can't isolate which node has the data. So it has to look at all of the nodes in the cluster. So that actually, isn't very efficient at all in terms of, streamlining some things. We have found there's some articles out there. Richard Lowe of Apple wrote a great article several years ago on the sweet spot. I think it actually is called the sweet spot for secondary indexes in Cassandra. And he talks about it being, hey, if the cardinality of your column is about the same number of nodes that you have, so what we call middle of the road cardinality, it's not a Boolean, but it's not unique. It's kind of in the middle. That's a good fit for a secondary index. Now, on the other hand, an email address, I mean, that's nigh unique. I mean, that could be a key in and of itself because it has a great degree of cardinality. So that's where a secondary index wouldn't be a good approach. So now, of course, that's going to mean that we're doing two queries to query by email address, but let me show you why that's better. If we go here, let's say we're doing a secondary index query. So I've created my index, and I'm querying from select from user where email equals homer@simpsons.com, right? And user ID is my partition key, and it's not a part of the where clause. So right off the bat, Spring Boot here can't determine which node has the data. So what it does is it just kind of picks a node to be what's called a coordinator. Now, Astra actually does work a little different in this regard, but this is like a straight Cassandra answer as to how it would handle that. So there's an algorithm that goes into picking a coordinator. It looks at things like how busy is the node, what's the load on it, what's the least network distance. I mean, there are things that go into it. It's not completely random, but suffice to say, for this example, it just picks a coordinator. The thing is, though, is that coordinator then shoulders the load for querying all of the other nodes. And it has to do that. It has to look at all the other nodes in the cluster to build its result set. And this is super inefficient because really its result set, in this case, is just one entry. So it's got to look at everything just to find that one needle in a haystack kind of an approach. So now I know this doesn't look that bad because this is a 7-node cluster, but try to think about how many arrows would be on the screen if we had a 70-node cluster, or if we worked at Apple and we had a 700-node cluster. Something like that would be super inefficient and potentially even time out if you tried to use that at really, really large scale. So now we move on to the manual index query where we have our, hey, I remembered user by email this time. Haha, all right. So now we're querying user by email. And the good thing about this is the driver knows exactly which nodes have the data. So in this case, Spring Boot can say, hey, that node has my email data, and it goes right there. And then it gets the response of the user ID, and now it says, oh, well, now I know which node has the user ID. So it's that node over there. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that data. So this, regardless of how big the cluster gets, is only 2 calls over the network. All right, and that's assuming you're going at like consistency level of 1, of course. But again, the ratio there of like 2 calls versus 7, or 2 versus 70, or 2 versus 700, that's where you start to think about how the scale really plays into or really comes into play here. All right, so of course we have multiple tables. How do we keep those in sync? Well, Cassandra and Astra DB actually do offer an atomic batch. Now, there's a lot of controversy out there around this because what happens is folks tend to use that wrong because it's named exactly as something else in the SQL world, in the relational database world, but it works totally different. So really, I do coach people a lot to try and stay away from using batch, but this is where you'd actually want to use it when you have two tables that you need to keep in sync. And the way that Spring Data lets you do that is with this transactional annotation. And really what that does is as of, I think it's one of the more recent versions of Spring, but it's one we're using where as long as you're on that version, transaction support is like pre-configured. It's already running, it's there. So you don't need to do any additional config to turn it on. But as long as you have that transactional annotation, mutations that happen to the database in your method will actually be rolled back if one of them fails. So that's the whole idea around it. So like in this case, when we do a create user and we're saving out to the user repo and the user by email repo, if one of those should fail for whatever reason, it makes sure that that write doesn't happen to either one. So really, that's kind of a protection you'd have to help enforce some data integrity.
So Aaron, I'm going to put you on a spot here. I know there are a lot of Java folks here, but what about Python and Node.js? What do those people do?
Ooh, so yeah, that's where you'd have to use. I think it's like begin. Oh, I'm trying to remember the exact syntax, but if you look up CQL batch, based on the language and the driver that you're using, it will actually show you how to do this. I think it's like a begin batch or begin unlogged batch, depending on if you're like going over multiple partitions, which in this case we are, but there are so few entries that that's not a big deal. But
so as long as the driver supports and so, you know the SQL semantics are there, I think you know it'll be handled appropriately. Correct? Yeah.
Yep, and they are. They're in all of our major. It's in all of our major drivers. So yeah.
All right.
All right, Rags. I think we're on step 3 of
and I go creating up to our schema, creating the Git part. Correct. So make sure that we are doing okay. All right. So let me go back here.
Yeah.
Again, all that I do is follow the self-explanatory instructions, right? So create your schema. Okay, so product data model, shopping data model, etc., etc., etc. So open the SQL console on Astra. Okay, so if it's not obvious, it's pretty straightforward. All that you do is you, let me actually go back to the dashboard. And again, if you can pay a little bit of attention, and we'll turn you loose, and then you can try it yourself. Okay, so here's my dashboard, right? So I click on the appropriate database, right? And then I go into my SQL console, right? And just to make sure that you have the right one, if you just do a describe key spaces, you know, it should show all the key spaces in there. And the one thing you're looking for is the e-commerce one that you created, right? So then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use e-commerce. Okay, and then follow along. That's it, right? So use e-commerce and then create a table if not exists, which is always a good idea because you don't want to overwrite something and lose all the data, right? So just make sure you do this. You create the product data model, okay? So I'm just going to cut and paste from here and put it in here, right? So where am I? Let's go back to Astra, right? And basically hit this. And it should work fine because, you know, I already have it, right? And you can look that up by just doing a describe tables again. And you should see all of this, right? You know, the ones that we just created. So create table if not exists, featured product groups. Create table if not exists, product. And create table if not exists, category. Create table if not exists, price. All of them, right? So you can see here there's price, there is featured product groups, and so on and so forth. Okay? So you can take a look at that. And once you have the data model for product, the shopping cart, and the user profile, right? This is the one that we added for session 3. Okay, just make sure that I create this too, although I think I've already created this, but let me do this again. Okay, I hope that it works, right? Already exists. So again, if exists. So we should have done that. We didn't do that, right? So it's already there, but if you have not created it, you're fine, because this is the first time you're going to be creating this anyway, right? So let's get that out of the way, and I think even if you don't create this, the programs create this for you, so you may be okay doing this. And then you populate the data.
Yeah, you'll definitely want the product tables though, because those have to be seeded ahead of time. Yeah.
So you definitely want to do session 1 and session 2, session 1 and session 2, but session 3 may be optional, but do it anyway. And for as a note for ourselves, we should do the if not exists, right? We should end. All right.
Yeah.
So now we add the data. Okay, add all the data in there, and we can do a select star from category. Not a good idea to do the select star, because like what Aaron already talked about, it's going to go to every node and pull out all that, which is probably not a good idea. You really want to select based on the partition key. Okay, but since we still have a manageable number of categories, select star from category. Okay, there are the different categories. Okay, so it has the parent ID, it has the category ID, it has an image of that, it has a name, and what are the different products associated here, right? And this is the denormalization part that Aaron was referring to. Okay, so all that I do again is cut it and try that out. Okay, so you can see that. All right. So keep going, and you also need to create a token that we're going to use in a little bit. Okay, very soon. So what you will need to do is create a token, and to do that, again, very straightforward, right? I go back here to my database. Okay, and in my organization, I'm going to say organization settings. Okay, and then there is the token management, and there are different roles that you can use, and again, going by the principles of security, you want to provide use the concept of what is called as the least security privilege. So provide the least privilege possible, but since we are doing this just for for the purposes of the workshop, it's pretty straightforward. We'll just go with database administrator, okay, and then generate a token.
Yep.
So the cool thing about this is you got the token, but if you navigate away from this page, this is gone forever. It's gone in the ether. Okay, so what we advise you to do is download the token details. If you download the token details, it will be saved in like a spreadsheet or something like that you can use going forward. Okay. But if you, for some reason, navigated without copying, no worries. You can always generate a new token. Okay, although not a good idea. Always want to keep track of that. But really, what you want to do is, kind of put it on a spreadsheet, and we'll be using this very, very, very shortly. Okay. So I know that I've done with this. Save your token locally. If you don't want to put it in a spreadsheet, you can put it in Node, because what it lets you do is, you can copy paste this, right? So for example, if you want the client ID, you can copy this and you can put it in a notepad or something like that if you want. You can do, whatever suits your fancy. I think that's it from 4 and 5 perspective. We're going to get to 6 shortly, right? Okay,
Yep,
so
that's
back
right.
to Adam. Oh, we're back to 6? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
Okay,
Let me
no
get my
worries.
slideshow going again here. Okay. All right. So yeah, thanks, Regs, for taking us through that. I know that can be a little tricky sometimes, but so now we've covered getting your token, um, the idea behind how the data models are architected, as well as implementing it and loading up some of that data as well. So now we're going to talk about the RESTful service layer. Um, so yeah. Now, as part of as part of them, I think it's what is it? Is it Open
Correct.
API that that we implement to build up the Swagger spec? But basically, what that is it's a kind of think of it like a dictionary of the REST services that are available. So if you go to that URL, when you're running this, you can actually see these laid out like that, and you can go in and test them out and things like that too. Anyway, I digress. So if you look at the Swagger spec for the user get services, what we have out there is we have 3. So we have one that's just user without any parameterized, without another parameter on there, and that's the one that actually handles the redirects from that third party OAuth provider. So like Google or GitHub, when you say, hey, log in with Google, and it goes ahead and it goes out to the Google API, based on the client ID and the secret. It's going to come back with that response, that payload. This is the method that gets called. So that actually handles, hey, does this user exist? No. So, okay, we'll create a new user. Hey, does this user exist? Oh, okay, well, we'll retrieve that user and make sure we're returning that back to the website. The next one here is that, and again, a lot of these you'll find that, if your site is working on like a traditional username and password type of authentication, you'll be using the user ID and email ones more frequently. So again, user ID retrieves a user by user ID, and it's simple, right? And then of course there's the email one where user email and then the email address goes ahead and pulls it back by just the email address. So again, if you have a new user coming on and they give you that address, or if the address is all you have from another part of your data model, you can quickly pull back a user just based on that. So, for example, here, I know this might be a little difficult to read because it's just a lot. But if we're doing select star from user, and where our user ID is like a specific user, what happens is you get all this back. You can see, yeah, my email address is in there. Some of my address is in there as well. So yeah, that's kind of how that query works behind the scenes. Specifically, too, is that if you go ahead and query, just by user email, this is what that user email service is doing, where it's taking that email parameter and running a query behind the scenes, and that's where you're going to come back with your user ID. And again, that allows you a quick lookup by email there. All right. Of course, too, we also want to be able to, a payload coming from Google isn't going to have like all of your information. So there is a way to go ahead and update that. So that endpoint is it takes a put, and it's user ID /update. And really what that takes is again, just, any data that you've updated in your profile on the web, takes it and persists it into the database. And I think there's also I don't know if it made it in here or not, but there's also a post for user ID create. And again, that's about, if you're using username and password authentication, that's where you're going to go ahead and, need that
So
functionality.
essentially, the idea is, you
All
manipulate
right.
all of that via APIs, right? It makes it easier.
That's right.
Whichever service you're calling, it just calls the API, and boom, done, right? Yeah.
That's right. That's right. All right, Rags. I think we're on to setting up the
Perfect. I know
application.
that
So
you guys are
about
waiting.
firing
I know there was
GitHub.
already questions about Gitpod, and I have to go on record saying that Gitpod is a great company, and we use Gitpod. Can't say enough about them. Last night I had all kinds of issues with Gitpod, which is very rare, but it's like any piece of software, right? It does happen. But they stepped
Oh,
to, I
right.
told them I was blocked, and they immediately fixed it. So I'm really thrilled. I really want to thank them for that, and because of that, I'm going to be able to demo, all of this in Gitpod, just like what you guys are going to be doing. I had planned doing it on localhost, but localhost is so 1980s, right? I don't want to do that. So I want to get to Gitpod. Gitpod is really cool. Okay. So with that said, let me go to my presentation again. Open in Gitpod. Some people actually, don't realize that this is a clickable link. Okay, so all that you need to do is open this link in new window, open this link in new tab, or open link in new private window. I'm not going to do that because I already have done that. Okay, so you'll see here, it's timed out. So I'll bring that up again. Okay, and hopefully this is going to work fine. Yesterday I had some issues, but I should be able to see this up and running pretty quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good sign.
All right. So you will see here, it's Visual Studio in the cloud. Really, that's what it is. You have the File Explorer window, right? Which is very similar to what you see in Visual Studio Code, and you can see here, it's building a lot of stuff for me. This is the Tailwind CSS that Aaron was referring to, and then of course you have Spring as well. All of those are in like backend directory, UI directory. So if you want to kind of figure out what the heck this is doing, you can kind of take a look at all this, right? You can dig into source, you can dig into main, Java, and look at the application, e-commerce application, Java, which extends the security adapter. And this is kind of how we're going to make social login available in just a little bit, okay? So take the time to kind of move around this, and kind of figure out what exactly this is doing, what exactly is the OpenAPI controller doing, what is the OpenAPI documentation doing, and this is the one that Aaron was talking about, right? Where you can get information about the Swagger document, okay? Or you can take a look at the service itself. Like, let's look at the product service, right? Product.java, product entity.java. And if you look at product Java, you can see there are these getter setter properties, which are available. Then you can kind of walk through that. Your user cards, your price, you have, all of these. You can take a quick look at this. And again, all of this will be available for you, after the workshop too. So, if you don't have the time, no worries, you can do it later as well. Okay. But suffice to know that there are three parts, which is the File Explorer window, and then there is the editor window, if you will, and then there is the terminal window. Okay, so what you're typically going to use is the terminal window and the editor window, and we'll talk about all of this in a second. So the first thing you're going to do, remember we put the token somewhere in a safe place, right? All that you need to do is kind of follow the steps again. I copy the env.example. Okay, so go back here. What's going on here? Okay, so let me clear this. Yeah, what's going on? Here. Okay, I don't know what's. Okay, I don't know why that's happening, but give me a second here. Okay, that's much better. All right, let's go with this. Yeah. Okay. That's fine. And I'll just increase the font a little bit, make it a little bit better. Okay. So you can see here, we have provided a .env dot whatever that was, right? Was it example? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that sample.
So you can
or
see
something.
here,
Yeah.
you can copy this .env.example to .env. Okay. I have done all this. And then what you can do is you can open gpopen.env. Okay. So this is so that you can enter the, Astra DB ID, the token and all that. The DB region and what is the key space. This is already pre-populated for you. Once you have this, then you're pretty much ready to connect to Astra DB. Okay, and remember these are the values. The token is the one that you got from what you did by downloading the token, right? And then you can get the DB ID in the region. If you go back to the dashboard again, okay, and all of this is illustrated there. Okay, you can see here you have the database ID. Okay, so all that you're going to do is you're going to copy this database ID. Okay, and then which region it is basically if you click on it, it'll tell you which region it is. So you grab the region from there. Just make sure you don't do anything with the data center ID. That's only for us. But you do the database ID and the what else were you looking at? Database ID, the region, and the token, and you should be good to go.
And
And the key
space,
space
I
is
think,
already
too, is in
pre-populated.
there, right?
Okay, good point. All right. So once I get this going, right, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I'm able to connect, right? So we have some very simple tests. It's all test-driven development, right? We want to make sure you are connected before you can do anything, right? So again, just follow the steps, right? The first time around when you do Maven, it might download the entire world as it does, right? But don't worry about it. It takes maybe a couple of minutes, but you'll be good to go in a little bit. So I'm just going to go to backend and run the test and see if it works, okay? So hopefully, if it's not working, then usually it's, something that, yeah, I knew this was going to happen. So what you can do is you can source the .env and all of this is in the, is mentioned in there. Okay. And basically I can run the test again. Okay. And hopefully this time it should be able to connect. Okay, you'll see, it has Stargate. Stargate is kind of our unifying API, and if you attend any of an intro to Cassandra or intro to NoSQL, you will see, you can see here there are a bunch of product categories, right? The ones that we saw in the SQL. Like, for example, if you go back here and connect to this database again, right? So go back to demos and e-commerce and connect and use e-commerce. So nothing magical, everything you can see here, right? And describe table, same thing, right? Same drill. And I can't describe today. I don't know why. Okay. Select star from category. Again, not a good idea to do select star, but since we have limited, so this is kind of the output that we saw there, cups and mugs, tech accessories, and so on and so forth. So if you go back and look, you'll see here, the tech accessories, cups and mugs, and so on and so forth. Okay. So good. We are able to connect. Okay, so let me see if I was supposed to do anything else. Maybe I ran a little bit ahead, but give us, I think I was supposed to do this, right? Run the unit tests, and then we'll do the social login in a little bit, okay? Yeah.
Yeah, we can.
So,
we can, yeah. Just think, a
yeah,
half hour
and
for
you
time.
can do more,
Just to-
basically go through this, there's different programs as well, which are all test driven. Okay, and hopefully, I haven't tested this in a long time, but hopefully this is still working. Okay, and you'll see here, you'll again get back some output if the connection successfully completes. So once you have this, you're fairly confident that you're able to connect to Astra, right? One of the things that I forgot to mention, no, I don't think we need the security workshop, right? I mean the zip file, because we are actually providing the token. So I
Right.
think we're good to go with. Let's see some thumbs up of having completed 5, 6, and 7, or is it 6 and 7? I forget. 6, which is setting up your application, open it in Gitpod, right? And then grab the token from there that you already downloaded and plug it into .env, okay? And then what you do is, just make sure that this is running, right? And then, maybe I missed that env part. You may have to do that, the source oh, it's in here. So make sure you do this and
Yeah,
then run the
I think
unit tests
that.
and you will be good to go. Okay, so shall we get back to the presentation, Aaron? I think we're doing reasonably well today. All right.
Yeah, I think there's one slide,
Okay.
and then we're right back to
Perfect.
right back
I
into
can
the
explain
README.
this. So essentially, what happens,
Yeah.
I alluded to this earlier, this is the same slide actually. Essentially, what we're doing is we're using Spring Security to be able to do this social logins, right? Today, we're going to do Google. But you can do GitHub, you can do Facebook, you can do whatever you want, right? There are a bunch of other sites, like even Okta, which we use in the enterprise. You can do all that using Spring Security. Very easy to do that, and hopefully we will walk through that in a second. Okay, but essentially what we do is integrate Spring Security and able to do the social login, and that's the next part that we're going to see in a moment. Do you want to add anything else, or this is really essentially
You know,
the essence of session 3 is adding this. Yeah, yeah,
it really is, yeah, yeah, and that's Rags. I just want to say that the tests that you just ran as a part of Maven there, the JUnit tests, were super important during the development and the implementation of Spring Security. Because I found out right away that Spring Security was nailing down and preventing me from going to the category service. So that's where I figured out that I needed to add in an additional route to make sure that that guest users, users that didn't authenticate, could still get to those services, because it was preventing the test from
yeah.
completing.
Kudos.
So yeah,
Kudos
one
to
of the
test-driven
nuances of
development,
Spring
right?
Web.
It's always yeah.
That's right.
So I
Test-driven
just noticed
development.
I had a typo in my README, and I'll talk to you about that in a second. Let me
Oh,
bring up
okay.
my monitor. Okay, and you guys can see this. It should be really a CD. I don't have the CD in there. Okay, so make sure you are in the current directory. So I don't have this. If you type it in your, you'll get something. No big deal. Just do a CD and e-commerce app, and you're back in the top directory, just to make sure that you're back in the top directory. Okay, so I noticed I made a typo, so I just wanted to bring it to your attention. All right, so now how do I integrate Google into it, right? That's the $1,000,000 question, right? So let's go. Basically, as it suggests, I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to open this up in a new tab. Okay, so open this link in a new tab. So just open that. I'm already logged in. Okay, I'm logged in as DataStax. Okay, but really it doesn't matter. You can add an account. I can try something else. It doesn't really matter. You can use any of the Google accounts. It should work, right? That's and then
Yeah,
what you
I think
do
so.
is follow the steps, right? The first thing you may have to do is go into this OAuth consent screen and make sure it's external. I think by default it's internal, and then do a create. Okay, and then you come back, and you may have to provide the app name, support email, and some emails and all that. If you want, you can put the app domain as gitpod.io. It doesn't matter. But once you're done with the consent screen with Google, right, based on the URL there, now click on the credentials tab and plus create credentials. Just follow the instructions, right? So RTFM, I'm creating the credentials, and then let's go back and look what it's saying. It's saying OAuth client ID. Make sure I put the right drop down, OAuth client ID. And I know that this works because I think, Aaron, you just tried this out, right? And then what you're going to do is you're going to say web
Yeah.
application, name as ecom. I'm not going to create it because it's probably going to want me anyway. Oh, maybe it didn't. Okay. And then you have to add the URI and add the redirect URI. So to add the direct JavaScript origin URI and the redirect URI, we have provided a convenient script here. Okay. So basically, what this does is it provides you with a way to use this and copy it. Okay. So if I go back to my terminal window and run this command, okay, you'll see here it substitutes the HTTPS with HTTP, and all that you're going to do is you're going to take this, okay, and plug it in, right? So you add the URI, okay, and just say this. That's it, right? And for the redirect URI, you hit the add URI, the redirect URI, and again go back here. This will tell you how to use the authorized redirect URI. Click that, go back again to my. So we are, just juggling tabs a little bit, but everything is available out there. Okay. So you can see here now. I take this and I put it in the redirect URI. See, the redirect URI is warning me that something is not working, right? So if you want GitHub, how would you do this? Exactly the same way. Login OAuth2/code/GitHub. Okay? And once you do a create, you're going to get the credentials. I'm not going to create it because, I've already created one. So I'm going to go back to my credentials. Okay, and look at the credentials here. Okay, and you will get this client ID and client secret and what date it was created and all that. I don't need to worry too much about that. I'm going to copy the client ID and the client secret from here. If you do it with a create, it'll provide you with an option to cut and paste it. So all that you're going to do is you're going to grab the client ID and client secret associated with the Google login. Okay, so there are lots of IDs and secrets going on. One is for the Astra. This is for the Google service, right? So we're gonna grab those. Okay, so when you hit create, you will get something like this: OAuth client created. Okay, and basically it will give you your client ID and your client secret. Your client secret is going to start with a geo, and your client ID could be ending with .apps. Whatever. Okay. So you're good at that. Then what you're going to do is we have provided an application YAML.sample that you will have to copy to application.yaml, because this is the one that's going to actually provide the SSO credentials to be able to use the Google login and do your SSO. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip this step because I've already copied, and I'm going to open this. Okay, so let me show this open here. All right, and you should see this, and you will see here I have set up for GitHub also, but for Google I have put in exactly the client secret and the client ID that I got from the Google authentication. Okay. All right, making progress here. I know it takes a little bit of time, and don't be too flustered, too concerned if it doesn't, if you cannot keep up. There is always, you can come back here. Okay. So then what you can do is you can start this application. I mean, this really doesn't, we don't really worry too much about that. But let's go back and look at this URL where the application is going to get served, right? So I'm going to go back here. and do the GPURL 8080. Okay, and I'm going to take this and I'm going to use a different browser here. It makes it easier for me, just to run it, right? And obviously, I get a 8080 not found because I haven't started the application, right? so I'll have to start the application, and this kind of walks through the steps. Okay. So if I go back again,
Yeah, I know this is tricky. When you're doing this on your own, you can go ahead and Google API with just localhost 8080. But yeah, for this one, you want to make sure you're grabbing your unique like Gitpod URL and
good
yeah.
point. Good point. Yeah, actually, that's a great point. Yeah, I'd forgotten to mention that. But how do I start my application? Pretty straightforward. All that I do is, and I'm going to run through this application really quickly, okay? And then I will turn you guys loose. We still have 20 minutes, which is pretty good, right? So we are doing
I
reasonably
think
okay.
so. Yeah.
All right. So all that I need to do is just do the start.sh. And again, nothing magical here. If you look at the basically what it's doing, it's sourcing the env. This is the token, the database ID, the region details, right? And then it's going to go into backend and build the application and run it. Okay, so I'm just going to run this, and let's see what happens.
All right, fingers
crossed. Exactly.
Yeah, I know this one has a lot of moving parts. So if you're not getting it right away, don't worry about it. It's definitely the video will be available after, you can go check. And of course the instructions in GitHub are out there too.
So sometimes you might get this as well. Allow the pop-ups. So just let all the pop-ups from this particular Gitpod IO, and you should be able to get the application. And you can see here the first time around you have a login, right? So let me go ahead and log in. First, let me use this different browser because it's easier for me to do it that way. I'm going to clear the browsing data. All power to me. Clear the data. I'm not going to do that on my browsers that I use because it just makes it easier, right? And I'm going to paste the URL. Hopefully I still have it there. Okay. And your application should be up and running, right? There you go, right? What I can do is I can go look at what do I want. I want a jacket today. I'm feeling like a jacket today, right? And I'm going to pick a large one.
Oh, and that jacket's really nice. You know what? It's so comfortable. I fall asleep in it all the time.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm going to add to the cart, and these parts, the international delivery, the loyalty rewards and all that, nothing is done yet. But at least you can go and check out your cart, right? You can go look at your cart and things like that, right? And you can, again, checkout is not implemented yet, but it's getting there. But let's look at the part that's implemented, right? Let's go and look at login. So if I do a login, the first time around it might get the consent screen and all that, but I've gone through all of that. All that I need to do is I'm going to say GitHub, right? Google login, right? Or you could have GitHub login and so on. I just log into my account. Okay, I can pick whatever I want. Okay, I'm going to pick, just for the heck of it, I'm going to pick my DataStax. Okay. And since I have doing it the first time, it might even ask me for, what is it called? The two-factor authentication. But let's see if it works.
Oh, right.
But this is the nice thing about using, okay. I did something wrong here. Embarrassing when you don't remember the password. All right.
Remember, folks, this is a live stream.
So it basically asking me for, so I'm going to do that. Let me make sure the user authentication works, right? And I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm authenticating, and just to make it easy, I'll just try another way, right? And I'm going to get a verification code, and I'm going to put that in. And hopefully this is going to work. There you go. And I am all authenticated. You can see here that the screen changed, right? And just for the heck of it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back. Actually, not here. I'm going to go back to Astra, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select, and Aaron, you should correct me if I'm getting this wrong. Select star from user. There you go. It just added this just a moment ago. Okay.
Excellent. Look at that. Look at that.
Yeah. So pretty exciting, right? Describe tables and what am I doing wrong here? Describe tables. Okay, and you can see user by email. This is the one that Aaron was talking about, right? And you should see that as well. Okay, so this is how the two are connected to each other, right? And this is what Aaron talked about, kind of building that manual index and making access fast. And notice here it has a lot of information about me, especially the email address, and you can get the other information as well. We just haven't kind of populated it here. Okay. Did I miss anything else that I had to do, or are we good to go? Oh,
I think we're okay.
yeah,
Yeah. We walked through the login. Did you show? I know you looked at a product. Did you add it to your cart?
I did add it to my card, right? No, I did not. Let me see if I did.
Oh, that looks like you're not logged in though. That's weird.
No, it is. It is logged in.
Log
Yeah, it is
there you
logged
are.
in. Yeah,
There
it is logged in, and
window.
it shows my shopping cart, and I can
Oh
check
yeah.
out and all that, and I can, I think we have had some issues with the logout. We are working on it, but we are we have done most of it. Now, if I go to my username, I can update this as well. Okay, so I live in a city called Chelmsford. Nobody has heard of that except a few people in UK. Whenever you do a Google search for Chelmsford, UK comes up. But so if I do a save, I can save my profile. Okay, and it updated your profile, right? If I go back and look at it on my database, hopefully this should have updated my user. And you can see here, it updated it to whatever that is, Chelmsford. Okay, so hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of how to do this. One thing I would like to do is show how easy it was to pull this off. Obviously I have some debugging statements here, right? Because we've been debugging this. But let's look at POM. So, the POM XML actually has, let me go look for it. It might be easier that way. OAuth. So you can see here, how did I miss that? Yeah, there's the OAuth2 client. Okay, so all that you need to do is include this OAuth2 client. Okay, and then what happens is if I go to my static, not here, where am I? So resources,
Oh yeah. Are you looking for your?
index HTML. Oh, there it is.
Oh.
Okay, there's the index. No, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm blanking out for a moment here. I'm trying to see where we set up the static. Okay, there it is. Yeah, not this. Okay, I'll find that in a second. All right, let me do it this way. Yeah. All right. Okay. So I go the hard way, right? Oh, okay. That's what I was looking for. Thank you. So if I go to Java, com and look at the security adapter. That's kind of what I was looking for. E-commerce application Java. You can see here, all that I needed to do was authorize the request, okay, and essentially provide that SSL login and the logout options, right? And Spring will take care of all of that for me by just using this OR2 login. Okay, and that's the library that we included in the POM file, in Maven, and you can kind of do this, with other languages as well. Maybe not to the same degree as easily as with Spring Boot, but again, in principle, what we are trying to do is set up the Google SSO and integrate it to our application, so that when the application hits that endpoint, it's going to figure out whether it's already authenticated. If it's already authenticated, no problem. I'll get the user details. If it's not, it'll send me to a redirect URL. It could be Google, GitHub, Facebook, wherever. I need to log in there. Now I'm going to get a token and the application says, I'm happy now. I have a token. I'm going to serve you, right? And depending on your level of access, you get the right level of access. Okay. So that is briefly what we did, which actually takes some time. And my suggestion again, we have gone easy on the homework, but our recommendation is that if you want to try this out yourself, and give it a shot. Do we see any thumbs up? Anybody already did? I know Orlando is saying not connected, but hopefully somebody is helping him out.
I think I saw a couple, but yeah, I did see some folks having problems. I have recommended some folks jump onto our Discord.
Sure.
I think Stefano's there trying to help them out. So.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Yeah, maybe sometimes what happens is you don't have the region right or something like that, right? Again, if you run the test application, that's really your time saver, lifesaver, really. Essentially what it will tell you is make the connection, because if you can't make the connection, forget about it. Nothing else is going to work, right? So make sure you run at least the connect part of it, and then you can proceed through it. And you can see here the workshop actually goes through quite a bit of detail of all this, right? It kind of talks about how to do the single sign-on. It talked about Swagger, the open API that actually Aaron referred to. And let me see if this works. I haven't tried this in a while, but hey, I live dangerously. Let me try this, right? So let's see if this works. There you go. Swagger is up and running, right? This is our e-commerce backend, right? And what you can do is you can, of course, this is a small. So typically what I do is I take this out of the browser and move it to the browser, okay? And then you can get the cards, you can get the products, you can get whatever you want. Okay, let me see what I can log. Let's try this. What the heck, right? I'm going to try it out. I never tried this before, but I'm going to try this anyway. Execute it. Okay, and basically I get an exception, right? So that's why they, you shouldn't try this, they say, right? But we should have tried this, but you get the idea. If you want to try the user cards, user ID cards, you can try all of that. Let's look for something like this product ID. Let me see if this works. Okay, so let's try it out. And there is an example here. Maybe that will work. Okay, and you can see here, beautiful, right? It's a annotation T-shirt. What is the brand, and so on and so forth. So all of these instructions are contained here. If you can't do it today, I know there's a lot we threw at you. But you will definitely be able to at least get to this part, including the Google login. And if you're really, really brave, you can even try the Gitpod login, right? All right. So with that said, can we get a couple of thumbs up of people having at least done a little bit beyond Have a card saved in the mobile phone without user ID. Ooh, okay. I don't know what he's doing, but that is cool. Oh, you're probably using my my application. Okay,
How
that's
how
fine.
can I retrieve the session? Oh yeah, Santosh, this is a discussion that Chris and I had quite a bit. Yeah, Spring Web Security, the way it's designed is that you shouldn't have to worry about the session ID itself. But that being said, we did have at one point in the project some endpoints designed around retrieving that session ID on the service layer side. But yeah, you shouldn't need to worry about that. That's yeah. Yeah, Spring Web Security takes care of all that.
I know that some of you are having issues, and it could be, as Stefano put it, could be Spring Boot issue. So feel free to put it on Discard, and some of us will try to jump on it and see if we can help you out. Again, it's a lot of things we have thrown at you, so just feel free to get some help in Discard. So with that said,
Yeah,
Aaron, back to
just to
you.
call out quick regs, the folks are seeing an issue around an inability to instantiate the web security configuration bean type. Yeah, the client registration repository. So so yeah, I'm actually seeing that now too, and I'm not sure why that is, but we will have a look at this and make sure that we're getting it's got to be somewhere in the POM XML. We'll make sure that we're getting a corrected version out there after the fact here.
So it's
Yeah.
working for me and not for the others. That's usually.
It looks like it works in Gitpod. It worked for me in Gitpod, but for me locally, I'm getting the
Oh,
same
I see.
thing.
Okay. So yeah,
Yeah.
one of the things that I forgot to mention right in the beginning is we do support local development because that's probably what a lot of people will be doing. But we test out our instructions extensively for Gitpod. So if it doesn't work locally, just go on Gitpod, right? You can try it out. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. So Gitpod for
Yeah.
now, at least. Yeah, I'm a little disturbed that I'm seeing the same thing locally, to be honest. So yeah, I'll get to work on that right away.
Sure. All
Oh,
right, now
and
the presentation is
says
up,
he's getting
and let's
a
start the
really
presentation, Menti, and hopefully we'll close on time today. Maybe about 5-10 minutes late. Yeah.
yeah. All right. So jumping back, yeah, we'll make sure we have a look at Discord and get to the bottom of what's going on with Maven here. Um, But really, as far as other sessions go, we have one more planned. Now, there's all kinds of other subsystems here that I'd really like to get to and talk about, and maybe we will in the future. But we have one more for sure, and that's going to be the order subsystem. So next time, that's what we're going to talk about. We'll get checkout working. I'd like to get something working with like our streaming service. So Astra Streaming, which is actually built on Apache Pulsar. I think that would be a really cool integration to do. So that's the way we're going to try and build it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see what we get to with that
I
one.
mean, you're not doing Apache Pulsar just because DataStax cares about it. It's the way to build scalable systems. Is to decouple and do streaming that way. Yeah, yeah. So I think it'll be cool. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, a little issue with my extra reading slide there. But I mentioned a lot of like outside works that kind of influence the path of this particular workshop. So I have them all here in the slides, and the slides are available actually out in the Git repo as well. But here I mentioned, the Dynamo paper, we talked about that. Dr. Eric Brewer and Dr. Armando Fox's paper that kind of founded CAP Theorem. There's a tutorial out there that talks about how to get started by building a simple Spring Boot app with OAuth with both. It walks you both through Google and GitHub, so that's on here. And then, of course, I mentioned Bildung's quick tutorial on doing like Spring TLS setup, so that when you're running a Spring Boot app out on the web, that you can actually have a good, valid SSL certificate out there with it as well for TLS. TLS 1.2, I think, is the current version that you'll want to be running on. So yeah. All right. So what's next, Regs? I see a lot of, oh, you know what? These are all old, I think.
No, this is fine. Yeah, this is the boot camp. I purposely
Boot
put it in
camp,
there.
yeah.
The reason why I put this in there was because it walks you through the different steps. You start basically with the intro, and then you have a data modeling, and then you kind of build the backend, and then you kind of build the entire application as a microservice. So this all happened before, but the point here is the middle part, which is the recordings are available. So go take a look, if you want more information on this. I'm sure you can use some of that experience here and vice versa, right? So, yeah.
Yep, for sure, for sure.
All right.
So yeah, let's finish with Menti.
Let's start the Menti going again, right? Okay, so I'm going to cut you off and
Yep.
I'm going to take over, okay? And hopefully I have it up and running somewhere. All right, so we're good to go. Let me see. Go back again to 6916 6752. Okay, just going to show you again. Okay, take a moment. Let's see how many people are there. All right. So let's start. Quiz time. Fun part. And what do you get for winning the quiz? You get swag, cool swag, and really we can send it to anywhere in the world. Let me make sure that I have two small heads, and I'll put some music on because it's been a long journey and I'm a little tired. I mean, fun but tired. Tired fun, right? So let's see. Oh, can I turn this music on?
Yeah, I see that that some other folks there. Oh, yeah, Santosh is saying it works on his worked on Gitpod. That's good. That's
Yeah.
good. I was going to say too for the interim, if you run Maven with the -d skip tests, I think it'll work. But yeah, we should definitely look at why those tests are all of a sudden throwing a fit.
Gotcha. All right. For some reason, I'm not able to turn on the music, but I think I should proceed because we want to be doing this on time, right? That's our goal today. All right. So get ready. Question number 1. More than one window. I've had this problem before. All right. Let me get rid of that. Sorry about that. Okay. All right, let's try now. Oh. All right. You probably saw that answer for the first question, right? But that's fine. It's all fun, right? All right. So let's get to about how many people are viewing. I'm just wondering. Should we wait a little bit or should I just go ahead?
How many do we have in Menti
16.
right now? 16. Yeah. I think we'll wait a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's get everybody in there.
Yeah, let's 6916 6752. At this point, I'm an auctioneer. Or can we get to 20? At least can we get to 17? One more person. No? Okay, let's proceed. Okay, question 1 of 6. Answer fast, but more importantly, answer correctly. Why is Astra DB a better choice for e-commerce than a relational database?
There could be more than one answer for this one too.
Could be.
I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. Good clue. Good point. A lot of people got all of the above. That's cool. And some people didn't really want to answer. All right. Okay, moving on. Let's see the leaderboard. Wow, I haven't seen these names before. That's cool. Jen is the fastest. Kieda is
Woo.
next.
Good job, Jen.
Salahuddin Mahmood is close. Santosh, Lewis, Wansaj, Croc, Orlando, and KKKKKK. Any of them could win it. All right. Moving on. Next question. Question 2 of 6. Answer fast, but more importantly, answer correctly. What is the importance of a partition key, or the importance of partition key? It's just another key, no importance. It helps fulfill the application access patterns. It distributes data across nodes or data center. And it's just another name for primary key. What do you think it is? All right. It also does fulfill the access patterns if designed correctly. So if you do it right, then it will fulfill the application access pattern. All right.
Yep.
So we're good
That's
to go.
correct.
Next one. See the leaderboard and see if it produced any changes. Looks like Jen dropped off. And Luis Valenzuela. That's a cool name. Santosh. Salahuddin. Croc. Wansaj. Kieda. Anybody's game. All right. Question 3. Almost at the halfway point. Oh, what did I do here? Question 3. Answer fast, but most importantly, answer correctly. What data modeling technique are we using to query users by email address? Did we use a manual index? I think Aaron covered this. Did we use a secondary index? Did we do a covering index? Or did we do a bitmap index? Aaron, do you want to talk about the last two options? Because I know that you purposely wanted to talk about those, right? Maybe after the answer has come, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Hey, there we go. Oh, manual index. Wow. Yeah, yeah. That yeah, we might have done some confusion there. Yeah, I know that those can be difficult concepts to kind of follow. But yes, the correct answer is manual index. Secondary index is one that I had that slide that showed all the connection arrows to illustrate why that'd be a bad idea to try that. But yeah, anyway.
All right. What about covering index and bitmap index? You've got it from SQL?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure those are in SQL. I know I've used a bitmap index before. Those are usually good if you have something that's like extremely low cardinality.
Gotcha.
Covering index, I'm drawing a blank on as to what exactly that is right now. But maybe maybe we have a relational database expert out there who can put a quick note on that chat.
Yeah. and Salahuddin, Mahmood, and Orlando. You guys have a pretty huge lead. But I think people could still catch up. Could be anybody's game. All right. 4 of 6. 2 more. No, 4, 5, 6. Right. So we have 3 more. Oh, I do this all the time. All right. Question 4 of 6. Answer fast. How can you invoke an atomic batch in Spring Data? I think Aaron alluded to this via an atomic configuration with the batch annotation method, with the transactional annotation method on the method, or implement a foreign key or implement a bulk key. How do you do this? With the transactional method, a lot of people got that. That's cool. And it was a little confusing via the atomic configuration and the add batch annotation. Let's see how the leaderboard is shaping up. Looks like Luis might take the lead. No? Okay. Luis was fastest, but still Salahuddin held on. A couple more and we're good to go, right? 5 or 6. 2 more. Answer fast, but more importantly, correctly, right? Which Spring Boot authentication library did we leverage for achieving user SSO? Is it OAuth2? Is it Spring Auth? Is it user login, or is it capture all logins? And I think we talked about this a little bit. Time's up. And some people got Spring Auth, but most people got OAuth2, which is the library that we leverage today. I mean, I'm sure there are other authentication libraries, but today we leverage this. And let's see how the leaderboard shaped up. Looks like it might change. Maybe. No. Salahuddin is holding on. Louis is second. And Kiera, out of nowhere, is up there. All right. Last question for all the marbles. Question 6 of 6. Answer fast, but more importantly, correctly, right? What was or is the previous name of the OpenAPI specification? We probably didn't talk too much about this, but I think you should have an idea of what this is.
I actually did mention
Right.
this, but yeah, we only had like 1 or 2 mentions of
Right,
it while we were looking at the REST services. Yeah.
Let's see if people get it. Time's up. Most people got Swagger, which is cool.
Hey, all right.
So let's see how the leaderboard is shaping up. And, we say I'll leave this leaderboard up, the screen up for a little bit. All that you're going to do is you're going to grab a screenshot and send an email to jack.fryer. Salahuddin! Congratulations. He held on. Luis Venezuela in second and Queda in third. Awesome job. And all that you need to do is take a screenshot and send it to Gary.Harvey, and we'll have this. I'll leave this up for a little bit so that you can take a screenshot. Okay? And then we're going to go back to our presentation. All right, so let's try to wrap this up on time. Go back to this.
Yeah, we're not horribly late at least.
Right. And I'm going to get rid of this. And this is what you're going to do. You're going to, the first 3 are going to send mail to gary.harvey@datastax.com and include a screenshot of your Menti screen. All right.
And if you missed the screenshot, just remember we'll have the video available out on YouTube at this exact link. So you can go back and go to wherever we are in time and take that screenshot.
Absolutely.
If you missed it.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Adam, your presentation. Keep going.
Yeah. So let's see. You know what? I think we're skipping homework for this
Right,
one.
right.
We?
But
I know we
recommend that you do it on your own. Just implement the Google login. But don't worry about submitting it just yet. We'll have the instructions on how to do it at the end of the series. Okay. So
I think it should be GitHub, right? Because we.
No, it's implement the Google login. Yeah. Just make sure it
show them how to
make
do
sure
that?
it works. Yeah. Make sure it works. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, make sure
Yeah.
it works. Yeah. All right.
Because I know that some people had issues getting it done, right? So make sure it.
Yeah, that's
flows,
good. That's true.
yeah,
That's true.
End to end. All right.
Okay. Yeah, we have a hackathon coming up that we're doing in a partnership with Angel Hack. So it's an Astra DB build-a-thon. The theme is making side hustles a reality. So that is actually just started, but there is time for you to get in on that if you want. So yeah, it's going for like a total of like 3 months, 3 rounds of challenges. You can join for 1 month or all 3 if you want. And there's like $41,000 worth of prizes. I mean, wow, that's just that's a lot. And I think my head is covering up the there you go, the link to it. The if you go to buildathonhack.com, this should if you want to sign up, that's where it's at. All right. Now my head's just moving all over the place. Hey, remember too, we have our Discord out there. I mentioned it to some of you. we will definitely get to the bottom of what's going on with the libraries there with Maven pulling them in. And we'll get a fix out there. And yeah, and that's just one thing that is worth mentioning with these projects is that it's a work in progress.
And that's the reason why we split it up into like multiple parts, because there's no way we can get this done in one part. We will have this for 3 days, and it's going to take forever. So no worries. You can pace yourself, and hopefully by the end of part 4, you'll have the complete application built.
Yep. All right. Hey, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have lots of videos out there. The previous 2 videos for this series are out there as well, but we have others in terms of like, if you're still getting used to or still learning NoSQL databases, we have a session out there for that. We have one that's just focused on how to connect and how to work with Astra DB. There's so much out there for you to take advantage of, so much information. So yeah, hit that subscribe, and definitely check out what we've got.
Yeah, I think coincidentally, I think next week is intro to Cassandra, and the week after that is intro to NoSQL or something like that. So a lot of intro material as well. Even though we do cover some complicated stuff as well.
For sure. Yeah, I think today's was complicated.
Yeah, a lot of stuff coming together, but I'm sure there is this gratification of having done it, right? So.
For sure. All right, Regs, I think that's it. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. And, again, let people know that there is one more installment of this where we'll briefly go through the beginning, and then we'll round out the application. So thanks again. Ciao. See you some part of the world sometime.
And as always, don't forget to click that subscribe button and ring that bell to get notifications for all of our future upcoming workshops.
Imagine a being gifted with powers from the goddess of Cassandra, who grew those powers until she could multiply at will, move with limitless speed, and unmask hidden knowledge. With those powers, she was able to fully understand the connectedness of the world. What she saw was a world in need of understanding. From that day forward, she sought to bestow her powers on all who came into contact with her, empowering them to achieve wondrous feats.